Hello, welcome to Economics in Short. Today we shall discuss the concept of elasticity of demand. Elasticity of demand shows the flexibility of consumers while making purchasing decisions, such as the quantity to be purchased, the brand that the consumers would choose, or whether to substitute a product for another or not. So, elasticity of demand refers to change in demand for any good or service consequent upon a change in any one of the variables that affect the purchasing decisions of the customers. Along with price, factors like availability of substitutes, advertising pressure, and the income of the purchaser affect the purchasing decisions of the customers. When change in any of these factors leads to a significant or remarkable change in demand for a product or service, its elasticity of demand is considered to be high. In other words, elasticity of demand shows that the purchasing behavior of the consumer is largely flexible, as a rubber brand is stretchable. If a consumer is willing to buy a different brand of tea or to forego buying it simply because its price has risen, then we call the demand for tea to be elastic. On the other side, if demand for good is not so much responsive to shift in price or other purchasing influencing variables, then demand is considered to be inelastic. In case of some products, for example, that is like products in which customers are addicted, in those cases, consumers are inflexible on their purchasing decisions. Either a rise in price or the advertisements do not significantly influence consumers' demand. So, in those cases, the elasticity of demand is considered to be inelastic. Elasticity of demand shows how changing market conditions affect demand. Hence, it helps in predicting the future economic trend regarding supply, production, investment, etc. So, we can classify the elasticity of demand into four types. Number one, the price elasticity of demand. Number two, income elasticity of demand. Number three, cross elasticity of demand. Number four, advertisements elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand is an extension of the law of demand. That is, it is based upon the basics of law of demand, which states that there is an inverse relationship between the price and quantity demanded, but it doesn't in any way tell us that to what extent quantity demanded would respond to a given change in price. Here, the price elasticity of demand, other factors determining demand remaining same, provides this information. which can be expressed as elasticity of demand is equal to percentage change in quantity demanded divided by or as a consequent upon the percentage change in price. The percentage change in quantity demanded can be found out from delta Q by Q multiplied with 100. Similarly, percentage change in price can be found out by delta P divided by P, the original price, multiplied with 100. So it comes to delta Q by delta P multiplied with P by Q. Necessarily, the elasticity of demand, nature of elasticity of demand would be negative since there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. That's why we ignore that negative sign and we just express it like that. We can express elasticity of demand through a mathematical equation also with the process of differentiation technique. That is, elasticity of demand is equal to dq by dp multiplied with p by q. So, now coming over to the degree of responsiveness, we can categorize the price elasticity of demand into 5 types. That is, perfectly elastic demand, perfectly inelastic demand, relatively elastic or elastic demand, relatively inelastic or inelastic demand, and unitary elasticity of demand. That is, if the change in quantity demanded is more than proportionate to the change in the price, then the elasticity of demand is called to be elastic or relatively elastic demand. That can be graphically projected through a flatter demand curve. If we take a flatter linear demand curve, look at the figure, the horizontal axis representing the quantity demanded and the vertical axis representing the price of the good concerned. The DD is the demand curve. In that case, originally the price is OP, where the consumer is demanding OQ of quantity. Now, suppose the price falls from OP to OP1. That fall is leading to an increase in quantity demanded from OQ to OQ1. So, a PP1 of fall in price leading to a QQ1 increase in quantity demanded, which is more than proportionate. A larger change in quantity demanded for a given change in price. So here the elasticity of demand is greater than 1 or more elastic, or simply elastic we can call. Similarly we can explain the relatively inelastic or inelastic by drawing a steeper linear demand curve. In the figure D1, look at the change in price from OP to OP1 is leading to a change in quantity demanded from OQ to OQ1. So here the change in quantity demanded is lesser than or proportionately lesser than the change in price. So The elasticity of demand in this case is less than 1 but greater than 0. That is relatively inelastic. But when the change in quantity demanded as a result of a change in price are equiproportionate, that is a given change in price leads to an equal proportionate change in quantity demanded, then in that case the value of elasticity of demand would be equal to 1. And in that case, the demand curve would take the shape of a rectangular hyperbola. The important property of a rectangular hyperbola is you take any point along the demand curve and join it with both the axes, the area that you get would remain same. What does that area signify? Take for example, look at the figure, that if we start with the point A, so the price is OP and the corresponding quantity demanded is Q. So the area is PAQO. This area represents price, that is OP, multiplied with the quantity demanded OQ. So the total expenditure spent by the consumer for the purchase of the good. If we move down from A to B along the demand curve, then the price comes to OP1 and corresponding quantity demanded is OQ1. Now the area that we get is OP1 BQ1. This area also represents price multiplied with quantity, so the total expenditure. Both these areas represent the total expenditure incurred in purchasing this good would remain same. So in this case, the value of elasticity of demand would be equal to 1. This is called unit elasticity of demand. In case there is no change in the quantity demanded, although there is a fall or rise in price, in that case the elasticity of demand is equal to 0. That is called a perfectly inelastic demand, where the demand curve will be a vertical straight line. They are essentials, goods such as essentials. Take for example, a diabetic patient taking insulin. Whatever may be the price of that good, he or she has to purchase the same quantity. Even if the price falls, he cannot purchase more of insulin, or in case of a rise of price also, he cannot forego to purchase. So in that case of essentiality, the demand becomes perfectly inelastic. Last but not the least, that is the perfectly elastic demand case, where a slight fall or rise in price leads to a significant, that is infinite change in quantity demanded. That is a slight fall in price, the quantity demanded will rise infinitely, whereas a slight rise in price, the demand will fall to 0. This is a very rare case. This takes place only under perfect market, where all units of goods, all goods are perfect substitutes of each other. Under perfect competition only, that can become a reality, although perfect competition itself is a figment of the imagination of the economist. Thank you for today. Next in the next class.